Well, thank you, Jeff, and welcome everyone to our Taroworks 6.5 release web. As Jeff said, my name is Billy Cohen, and I am a senior consultant here at Taroworks. I'm really excited to share what we have in store for our Taroworks 6.5 release, to share new features and dynamic operations on Salesforce. That has some of the most remote. We will be going through what is new in Taroworks 6.5. I will be taking you through a demo of some of this new functionality available with this release. We will then go through some of the best practices when upgrading your Taroworks version in Salesforce, and we will end the session with a Q&A. Great, so what is new in Taroworks version 6.5? So as mentioned previously, the primary enhancement in this version is the ability to test your dynamic operations, both your calculations and validations, in Salesforce rather than on your mobile device. Taroworks 6.5 now supports the use of the Open Camera application, which is a free Android application that you can download onto your mobile device. And this application helps with image guidance. So it can help your mobile users with image guidance. And we also have included 3 more languages that are now available on the Taroworks mobile application. So let's start with dynamic operation testing on Salesforce. So before we get into dynamic operations testing, we're first going to look or do a quick recap of what dynamic operations actually are. We will then look into the ways in which testing your dynamic operations has changed with version 6.5. I will go through a demo showing how you can test both calculation and validation dynamic operations on the form in Salesforce. And then we will discuss a few caveats that exist with this new functionality. So firstly, what are dynamic operations? So dynamic operations is an extremely powerful feature that allows your Salesforce administrators or your form builders to either set up calculations or validations on specific questions in your form. Calculations are essentially calculation dynamic operations allow you to create offline calculations to automatically generate a response to a question. And validations, when you set up validations, you can display custom error messages when the mobile user enters responses that break some business rule that you've set up. These calculations and validation dynamic operations are written as JavaScript in the form question, which we'll look into. We have many resources available to you with respect to dynamic operations. So we've done deep dive sessions on both calculation dynamic operations as well as validation dynamic operations. Those are both available on our Taroworks YouTube channel. And we also have Zendesk documentation. So on our support site, we have documentation guiding you on how to set up step-by-step your calculation and validation dynamic operations, as well as examples of each. So now we'll look at how the testing has changed with the new version. So as whoever's been using dynamic operations will know, the testing process has been quite cumbersome in the past. Excuse me. What you would need to do is you would first create your dynamic operation using JavaScript on the form in the question. You would then need to publish the latest version of that form. Then on your mobile device, you would need to synchronize the latest version onto that device. And then you would test the dynamic operations by executing the job and getting to the question that has the dynamic operation in it and testing to see whether it's working or not. So this process was time consuming, and also when things didn't go as expected, when your dynamic operations weren't set up correctly, you would need to go back to the form, make your changes, and then go through this entire process again. But I'm glad to say that with version 6.5, you can now test your dynamic operations on the form in Salesforce. This feature will drastically reduce the amount of time that you as the administrator spend when adding dynamic operations to the form. And these quick tests, which I'm about to show you in the demo, will help you firstly catch any JavaScript syntax errors that you may have, as well as help you validate your JavaScript logic for the calculation and validation dynamic operations using dummy data. Great, so let's hop straight into a demo. So I am now logged in to Salesforce as an administrator. And for this demo, we are going to be testing some dynamic operations that have been set up on a form that is used by our fictitious company called Aquacomb to register new farmers into their organization. So this form here is called Register Farmer. And what I'm going to be doing in this demo is going through two examples for calculation dynamic operations using the new testing functionality, as well as two examples for validation dynamic operations. So I'm going to click onto the Question Builder tab. And we can start going through the examples. So as you can see here, we have section 1, which is farmer information. The first question, first name, and second question, last name. So the mobile user, when registering the farmer, is going to ask the farmer what their first name is and what their last name is. And then we have a question, question 3, which will concatenate the first and last names into a full name and display that to the mobile user. So we want to set up a calculation dynamic operation that takes the response of first name and the response of last name and concatenates them into full name. So I'm not going to go over in detail how to write the syntax for JavaScript, because as I've mentioned, we have the deep dive resources as well as resources on our support site. But I will quickly give a brief introduction on how to reference the response to a specific question. So in order to reference the response to a question, you would always start with TW dot, then you would provide the section name dot, then you would provide the question name and dot value. And this syntax here is what you would use to reference the response to a specific question. And so let's look at what we have here in terms of the JavaScript. So we have TW dot farmer information, which is the section name, dot full name, which is the question name for the full name, dot value equals TW dot farmer information, which is the section name, dot first name, which is the question name for first name, dot value, plus then we want to add a space in between first name and last name. So we have inverted commas here with a space in between them. And then similarly, we want to add the response to last name. So TW.farm information, which is the section name, dot last name, which is the question name, dot value. So that's our simple calculation dynamic operation that we've set up. And now with version 6.5, you will see this checkbox here for test dynamic operations. So what you would do is you would click on this text box, and then you can see that input boxes for first name and last name have appeared. We also have the type of data that is being expected. And what we can do here now is that we can give dummy data for first name and dummy data for last name, and then we can test to see what the what the full name would result in. So let's try that out. First name I will put Billy, last name I will put Cohen. Now when I click save, the test will run, and you can see this pop-up box has come up, And we can see the test result is Billy space Cohen. So the full name is being populated with what we expect. First name plus a space plus last name. Let's quickly say that for whatever reason, we by mistake forgot the space. So in the, sorry, just loading. Okay. So I'm going to uncheck this box so I can make an edit to the JavaScript. And now I'm going to delete the space. Okay. Click on Test Dynamic Operations. Great, so now you can see it will still be populated with whatever our last successful test's dummy data was. So Billy Cohen, I'm going to leave it at that. And now if I click Save, you can see the test result is Billy Cohen, but there's no space in between the two. Now as the administrator, I can see that I've left out a space, and I can go and quickly add that space instead of having to synchronize this to my phone, my mobile device, and then see I've left the space and then come and do the edits later. So I will add that space back and click Save. Great, so that's our first example of calculation dynamic operations. The next example I want to show is in section 2 called crop information. So when registering a farmer, we ask the farmer how many hectares of maize, wheat, and vegetables they grow. So that's question 6, 7, and 8. And then we have question 9, which is total hectares. And what we want is we want the total hectares to be the sum of the hectares of maize, wheat, and vegetables. So the actual calculation is very straightforward. So we'll quickly go through this again. So we've got tw.crop information, which is the section name, dot total hectares, which is the question name, dot value, equals tw.crop information dot hectares, which is the question name of how many hectares of maize do you grow, dot value, plus tw.crop information dot hectares wheat dot value, plus tw.crop information dot hectares vegetables dot value. So it's a simple summation. Now, if we go ahead and click on Test Dynamic Operations, we can see that 3 input boxes appear, one for hectares maize, one for hectares wheat, and one for hectares vegetables. You can see the type expected is number decimal because these questions 6, 7, and 8 are all decimal question numbers. And now we can input information or some values. So let's say it was 1 hectare of maize, 3.5 hectares of wheat, expecting the total hectares to be the sum of these, which should be 7. So if I click on Save, okay, I can see the test result 7. So I know that my dynamic operations are working as expected. Okay. Great. So those were 2 examples of calculation dynamic operations. Let's now shift to a couple of examples of validation dynamic operations. So the first one we're going to look at is question 10, phone number. So Aquacomb has a requirement: farmers need to be 10-digit phone numbers. So exactly 10 digits. This is only Aquacomb's requirements. Their requirements can be built however they need to be. But essentially what we want to ensure is that when a farmer provides their phone number, it's going to always be 10 digits long. So because phone number is a text question, we want 2 different validations on this phone number. The first is that we want to make sure that whatever is only digits, so there's no text characters inputted. And once that validation has been passed, we also want another validation to make sure that the number of digits equals 10. So let's have a look quickly at this dynamic operation to see how, as I've mentioned, we've got documentation on this, and this is actually one of the examples in that documentation, so you can always reference that. But let's have a look at validation. So you can see that the operation we've chosen is a dynamic operation, and we can see two if statements here. The first one, as I mentioned, is making sure that there are no text characters in the phone number response. So for that, we are using this is_nan function. And what is_nan is, it stands for is not all numbers. And essentially what it's going to do is it looks at the phone number response and will determine if there are any text, then it will throw this error called phone number should consist only of digits or consist of only digits. So again, you know, to reference the phone number, we've got tw.contactinfo, which is the section name, .phone number, which is the question name, .value, and then, as I mentioned, we use is_nan. So let's test this out first. So I'm going to so it's taking a little while on my side. So let me just try that again. My apologies, my Wi-Fi connection is not great at the moment. Just going to sorry about the delay here. Okay, let's try again. If I go to edit this and click on test dynamic operation, okay, so
Really, just let me know if you continue to have a connection
now
issue.
you can see
I
that
can,
an
log
input box
in
has appeared for. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So for input box has appeared for phone number. So what we're going to test first is, you know, a phone number that has some text characters. So let's add some digits and then some text characters, and then click save. Okay, so now you can see the test result is that validation error message should consist of only digits. So that's exactly what we were expecting. So now, okay, so I'm going to edit that question again and have a look at this second if statement. So basically, if it passes this first validation, right? So if it only consists of digits, we also want to validate that it consists of exactly 10 digits. So for this next if statement, we are using the .length function, which essentially returns the number of characters in a string. And what we're wanting to do is that we are saying we're referencing the phone number again. So tw.contactinfo.phone number.value and .length, which returns the number of characters. And so we're saying if the length of the phone number is not equal to 10, so exclamation mark equal is actually the syntax for not equal to. So if it's not equal to 10, then we want to throw this validation error, phone number should be 10 numbers long. All right, excuse me. As you can see here, also in the supporting text, we have we also for the mobile user, we can also guide them saying that they need to input a phone number of exactly 10 digits. So let's click on test this dynamic operation. So let's say now we've got a phone number that is 8 digits long. So there's no text characters, so it should pass this first one, but it should fail on the second one. So let's click save. And now we can see the validation error of phone number should be 10 numbers long. So exactly what we're expecting. And lastly, let's give an input or some dummy data of a phone number of 10 digits and see what happens. Okay, so that's a 10-digit number. Let's click save. And now we can see that the test result is input validated. So that input has passed the validations, which is exactly what we're expecting. So now as the administrator, I'm happy that my dynamic operation has been set up correctly. Great, so the final validation that I want to go through is with regards to email addresses. So with this fictitious company, Aquacomb, having the correct email address for the farmer is really important, because at the end of each month, Aquacomb sends the farmers upcoming events for the next month via email, as well as some resources on farming techniques, etc. So we want to make sure that when we are gathering the email address, that it is the right email address. And one way for us to help do that is we can have an email address question shown here in number 11, and then we can have a confirm email address to make sure that the farmer is providing the correct email address. So we have added a validation on the confirm email address question. And essentially what we are doing with this validation is we are saying that if the email address and the confirmation of the email address are not equal to each other, then we want to throw an error saying email addresses are not the same, and not let them progress until the email addresses are the same. So quickly to write that JavaScript, so we've got tw.contactinfo, which is the section name, .confirm email address, which is the question name of confirm email address, .value. Then we have that not equal to sign again, w.contactinfo.emailaddress.value. So if they are not equal to each other, then throw the email addresses are not the same. So let's test this quickly. So I'm going to click the test dynamic operations. Okay, so now we have input boxes for both email address and confirm email address. So let's test first if they are not the same. So I'll put billy@taroworks.org for the email address, and then let's say I misspell it and I'd say it's bill@taroworks.org. So the confirm email address is missing the Y. If I now go ahead and save, we can see that that validation error is thrown. So email addresses are not the same. And if I go test again, so now adding the Y, so now they are the same. now we can see that the test result is input validated. So I'm sure now that my JavaScript is written correctly. One last thing I wanted to show with this testing, and something that can help you, is it can also help you catch syntax errors. So let's say, for instance, in this dynamic operation for total hectares, let's say we misspell one of the question names. So, okay, sorry, it is lagging again. Okay, great. So let's say instead of Hector's maze, we leave out the E of Hector's maze. Right, so here you can see before we have, we can input maize, Hector's wheat, Hector's vegetables. If I now click on test dynamic operations again, sorry, my internet is lagging. Let's try it with a little bit more of a simple one. So let's say for full name. So let's say I misspell first name, of the T for first name. If I click on test dynamic operations, now you can see that only an input box for last name has showed up, because it cannot find the question first name. And so this is a way for you to see that you have made some syntax error, made a spelling mistake, and you can go ahead and rectify that. So we can add the T, and then click on test dynamic operations again, and now you can see the first name input box has appeared. Great, so that is what I wanted to demo to you with regards to the new dynamic operations testing. The next thing I wanted to go is to look out for with this tool. So firstly, this tool cannot be used to test dynamic operations, calculations and validations in repeat sections. So any questions within a repeat section, you cannot use this tool to do any testing on. This follows that you also cannot reference any questions from a repeat section in other questions and use this tool. I mean, you obviously can still write dynamic operations with these, but it's just that this tool cannot be used to validate your dynamic operations. Another thing to look out for is that the question position is not validated with this tool. So, for example, with dynamic operations calculations, if you are referencing a question in your dynamic operation, that question needs to be previous to the question that you're writing your dynamic operation on. So either that question needs to be in a previous section, or it can be in the same section, but the questions are not on the same page. But with this tool, that position is not validated. So for instance, if I were to move first name below full name, okay, and just save the form. Okay, let me just move that again. Moment. Move it below full name. So just have to go ahead and save quickly. Okay. All right, so now if I go to that dynamic operation and test it, we can see that I can still input last name and first name. So if I do Cohen Billy and click save, we can still see the test result is correct, but on the mobile device, this will not work because first name is now after full name. And so, you know, when you're going through the form, obviously you will not be able to populate full name before you input first name. That's something to look out for. Something else to look out for is that the dynamic operations and skip logic and dynamic operations and hidden questions is not included in the feature as of now. And there are some custom Taroworks functions, some custom Taroworks JavaScript functions for dynamic operations that are not supported. So the generate TW offline ID and the has answer function. So I think you know, this tool, the greatest advantages of this tool are really to capture your syntax errors as well as validate your JavaScript logic. Awesome. So moving on to our next feature. So with version 6.5, the open camera application is now supported with Taroworks. And this application allows the user to set up image guidance for the mobile users to take pictures in a specific way. So I'll show you an example of this. So essentially, you would download Open Camera from the Google Play Store. This is a free Android application. You can set this Open Camera as your default application for taking images. And then you can set up your photo guidance by uploading a ghost image to help your mobile users, to help guide your mobile users to taking photos as you would like. So I'll do a quick demo of this. So I'm now logged in as the Taroworks mobile user on an Android emulator called BlueStacks. So we have a job called update farmer information. So every 6 months, we go and get new farmer photos and new contact information for our farmers. I'm going to start this job. I'm then going to choose a farmer that I need to update. And now we can see the picture question. So when I take a picture, you will see a ghost image that helps me align the face of the farmer correctly so that our pictures are consistent. Okay. As you can see, I can align the face. And take a picture with that ghost image as a help. Awesome. So if you align somewhere where you want your images to be consistent, this will be a great application for you to use. And the final feature I'm going to go through is that we are really excited to announce that with Taroworks 6.5, Burmese, Bengali, and Nepali are now supported as language application. What this means is that users in your organizations can now experience the Taroworks application in these languages. All you need to do is set the user's languages to your target language on Salesforce, and then all of the buttons, the synchronization process, the settings, all the guidance on the Taroworks application will be in these in that language. This now brings our total number of languages supported to 11, as is
Hi, Billy. I think we're having some connection issues. We can no longer hear you. I think for the remainder of the session, I can go ahead and share my screen and then just jump back in when you can hear us. Joff, would you mind passing me the screen sharing? And then maybe we can hear Billy's audio. We can at least speak over what I'm displaying to reduce some of the bandwidth.
Yes,
here.
go ahead.
Okay,
also ensure,
Billy, I don't know if you can hear us, and maybe he can't hear us as well. Joff, so maybe if you want to mute him, let him know that his audio is not coming through. So if everyone can see my screen, so we have the additional mobile language support for Bengali, Burmese, and Nepali. And I think what Billy was just about to dive into is some upgrade best practices. So I can cover that. If you are a new Taroworks customer and you've never done a Taroworks upgrade before, we would encourage beginners to reach out. You can open a support ticket from our customer support site to request some assistance for your first upgrade, and a support team member will walk you through it. It's always advisable that mobile users are working offline during an upgrade. So you could just advise them to sync before you begin the upgrade, and then let them know when you're done so they can sync and resume their work. Once they do sync after you've done the installation in Salesforce, they'll be prompted to download the corresponding version of the mobile application. So that is our site with the release notes and upgrade documentation. It's always advisable to read our release notes before you do an upgrade. And then mainly the reason that we offer to walk you through this upgrade process is to ensure that you're upgrading all the relevant security profiles. So when we create new features, that could involve new permissions that are required to use those features. And you can map the required permissions automatically to your corresponding profiles, but you only get the opportunity to do that once. So it's a very important upgrade step that we like to be on the line for to ensure our customers don't miss. Are there any questions about the upgrade or about any of the new features in Taroworks 6.5 that Billy covered?
Great. Thanks, Erin, for that presentation, Billy. Yeah, so we have a question from Justina, who is asking where will we get this JavaScript syntax for use in new forms?
Great question. So on our support site, and we do have actually updated that article recently to try to make it a little more distinct. So we have broken down what used to be our one large tutorial into two separate articles for validations and calculations. So there's sample JavaScript on our website. Let me actually pull it up so I can show you where that is. And then you can copy and paste those examples from our website, and then just change your section names and your question names for your specific form. If you've started working on dynamic operations in your form and you're having any trouble, you could always open a support ticket and we can help you troubleshoot that as well. Did that answer the question? No.
Right. Thanks for that.
And this is our support articles. So we have a summary of how to use the feature, and then examples that you can copy and paste from.
Great. Thanks, Erin. I think that was clear. We have another question from Kennedy asking for dynamic operations testing. Wanted to know if we are still going to get the error messages that line XXX column YYY was expecting to see, but so instead with the new testing?
I guess, Kennedy, can you clarify the question either via the chat or maybe if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you and you can ask the question. I'm not sure what error message you're referring to.
Yeah, that's not quite clear. Kennedy, I can see your hand raised, so I'll go ahead and unmute you.
Hello?
To ask your question.
We
Yes,
can
we
hear you
can.
now, Kennedy.
Hi.
Hi, Kennedy. Do you want to just go ahead and rephrase your question? Kennedy, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hi, Kennedy.
Yes,
Can
we
you hear
can
us?
hear you.
Okay, my question was that usually when you type the dynamic operation you've made an error. For example, maybe in the operand, what will normally happen is that you get an error message that says something like there's an error in line maybe 75, column number 20, something like that. Like the says in that particular. Okay,
I know what you're referring to now.
See an operand, but code the command is something like that. So yes. the problem has always been that determining the columns and the lines,
yeah, so,
like it's a bit of a hassle. So I was wondering if that's something that will still be seen with this new way of testing.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for the question.
Is it something that is also being eliminated, that we're not going to see that?
No, so you'll still.
Because I saw where Bill was testing the instance where he omitted a letter in one of the fields, and the field was not actually shown. So I was wondering if that's taken care of the scenario where instead of getting an accurate message to say, okay, this is the problem, you were being told that, okay, I was expecting to see this, but so that is a very vague message that usually comes up.
Great question. So all of the existing, so all of the existing error messages that you would see today when you save a question with dynamic operations on it, it's still going to validate. Joff, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry, Kennedy. I think there's a little issue with the audio. So we'll follow up with this response as well. But yes, there's no change to the syntactical validation of your dynamic operations. When you click save, it's still going to be the same type of compiler, like looking at the syntax of the code you'd written, and it will be the same prompts. The only exception is that there is an additional validation to check that all of your references exist. So if you have a typo in your syntax referring to a question, tw.sectionname.questionName, it will present you with a more detailed error message for that. So you don't have to provide test data for all of your dynamic operations. You can still just create your dynamic operations and save as you do today, and it will do the same syntactical checks that it does in the current state. What test data will offer on top of that is if you want to run scenarios by presenting or entering values for the previous questions that you've referenced, then it gives you the opportunity to do that. Great question.
Yeah, great question over there. And we hope that answered the question. We shall also follow up to see whether that was answered. We have 2 more questions which seem interrelated, so I'll just combine them. One is from Richard asking whether it is possible to upgrade from 6.2 to 6.5. And the other one is whether how we will get to 6.5 and whether we'll be needing any support to implement that from our side.
Both great questions. Okay, so for upgrading, I'm gonna, okay, I think you guys can see my screen. For
Yes.
your upgrading, you always have to upgrade every major version. So when I say major version, there will be different sections in our upgrade support site for each major version. We might release additional Taroworks packages with an additional number. So for example, 6.2.1, and that's not considered a major version. So you need to go through all of these articles for each version that you're upgrading. So to go from 6.2 to 6.5, you would first need to upgrade through 6.4 and then go through the 6.5 upgrade steps. I think what was the second question again, Joe?
Whether we will need support to upgrade
okay.
6.5.
Yeah, so I think for customers that were around before 6.1, 6.1 was kind of a special upgrade in that, Salesforce was no longer building on a specific feature, namely attachments, and is encouraging the use of files. And so Taroworks had also changed its application to use attachment or files instead of attachments for photos and signatures, which was a very involved upgrade. So it's also part of your process for upgrading to the Lightning experience. It's recommended that you convert all of your attachments to files. So as a one-time service, we offered to do this on behalf of our customers, but that was just unique to the 6.1 release. So for all releases before, all releases, unless informed otherwise going forward, you are able to do your own upgrade by following the steps in our support site. So we do offer to help you with your first one, just to make sure that you're mapping your permissions and that you feel comfortable going through the process on your own if you're a new Taroworks administrator. For both of you, did that answer the question?
Great. Just to add, to answer a new question which has just been posted by Jason just a minute ago, asking what the prerequisites for installation or upgrade is that you'll just need to be on the previous package of Taroworks, which is 6.4, in order to upgrade to 6.5.
Exactly.
Yes. The other question is, what's the difference between dynamic operations, calculations, and validation answers?
The difference between dynamic operations and dynamic operation calculations and dynamic operations validations is when that code is run. So for calculations, when the question is, the page where the question is contained loads, it will run the calculation code. For a validation, it will run the code when you go to leave the page. So the main difference is when it's going to enact or call the JavaScript that you've written. But because of that nature, calculations are used to pre-populate responses to questions. Validations are used to throw error messages against invalid user inputs.
But thanks for that, Erin. The final question is asking how the photo guide is added.
Okay, great question. Let me see if I can't pull that up really quickly. So with Open Camera, there is a setting that allows you to upload your own image of any kind that will be used as a ghost image. You can also control the opacity of that image, so how much you want to be able to see the background photo. Just one moment. See if I can't pull this up. Okay. So in Open Camera, and this is in BlueStacks and emulator, but I have Open Camera open. You have in the settings menu something called a ghost image and ghost image opacity. So that's where you can choose either you can actually take an image to serve as a ghost image or select an image from your device. And then control as well how light or dark that image is displayed. That would be if you have camera open, under settings, and then camera preview.
Yes, and just as to add, we shall be also doing an article on the same, which shall be available on our support site. Yeah, we just have one more question which has just been asked, and the question is whether there is any plan to upload this APK file into Google Play Store.
Great question. There is not currently. So mainly what's preventing us from doing distribution through the Play Store is that all of our clients don't want to upgrade at the same time. So the version that's in your Salesforce instance of our application is what controls the version that you need to be on the mobile device, and we don't push upgrades in the back end either. I think this is the nature of our work is that with offline field teams, a lot of our clients want this to be heavily coordinated when they are going to download that new APK. And so in order to give our Taroworks administrators that power, we can't centralize our upgrades by pushing them to everyone at the same time, which also means we can't have a singular listing for where we're updating the versions for our APK either.
Great, thanks, Erin, for that. Hope that answered your question. Yeah, we have a couple of people saying that this work is these changes are going to make dynamic operations testing on Salesforce quite easier. So yeah, thanks for that. I think that was it for the questions. And we are good to go. As I mentioned earlier, this session will be available on our website and YouTube channel. And also, we shall be posting these links also on our partner community. So thank you so much, everyone, and bye-bye.
Thank you.